And that's the old covenant, but they didn't call it the old covenant. That's the original covenant before you then are part of this new covenant. That their message was basically, it's not as simple as Paul makes it sound. It's good news, but it's not that good. Now, Paul found out about this, and he was apoplectic. That's the only word I can think of. He was so angry. He's so angry, he says something in this document that we call the book of Galatians, because that's the letter he wrote the church in Galatia in response to these people going in and kind of diminishing what he had taught. He says something in that letter that is so crude, I'm not even sure I would read that verse in church. And yes, I'm trying to bait you into reading your Bible. So you need to read the book of Galatians and find that. It is like so crude because he's so angry that this group would come and pollute and diminish the grace of God with a version of Christianity. I mean, these were Jesus followers by trying to combine the two covenants. Anyway, so he writes a letter to these churches in Galatia. We call it the book of Galatians in our New Testament. And he's trying to call them back to the good news. And here's what he says. This is my version, then we're going to get to his. He says, hey, look, God is your father. He's not an officer of the law. God is your father. He's not an officer of the law. Now, if you're an officer of the law, no offense, but let me just say this. If you're an officer of the law, if everybody in your community would do what we're talking about today, your job would be safer and easier. So I'm all for officers of the law. Paul's point is, look, that's not the role that God is playing. Besides, Paul says, did knowing the difference between right and wrong ensure that you would do what's right? Did knowing the law ensure that you kept the law? No. Did the fear of God keep you from doing wrong? No, because rules don't empower you to keep the rules. They're just the rules. They're just the law. There's no power there. To use my friend's word, he would say, you're not disciplined enough. And when you know what to do and you don't do it, how do you feel? You feel guilty. And ultimately, if you continue to do what you know you shouldn't do, you feel condemned. And at some point, you just give up and you say, why even try? Then Paul goes on to say this, the way of Jesus is a completely different way. It is a completely different orientation toward life. It is a reorientation toward God, a reorientation from I promise to I surrender, from obedience to dependence, from I will to I can't, but you can through me. That Paul, as we're going to see, he insists that the Christian life is actually the life of Jesus lived not by us, but lived through us. Because my friend was absolutely correct. You're not disciplined enough. You can't. I can't. But if we allow him to, he can and he will. And here's the promise. When we embrace this new orientation toward God, when we embrace the way of Jesus, as Paul is going to spell it out, that Jesus talked about as well, when we embrace this approach slowly, at times imperceptibly, Christ will produce his fruit, as Paul talks about it, or his life through you, through your personality, through your temperament. Now that's my version. Here's Paul's kind of clunky version. It's not his fault. He's writing in a different language in a different time, but here's what he says, and it is amazing. In fact, let me tell you how amazing it is. It's so amazing that there's a verse we're gonna get to in a minute that if I were to just post it online without any reference to it being in the Bible, I would just be annihilated. You'd be annihilated by Christians. It is so extreme. That's how good the good news is. And that's why there's always the temptation to tap it down, to undermine it, to try to contextualize it or recontextualize it and take away some of the goodness in the good. Here's what he writes to this group in Galatia. He says, look,
Itong 4 hour ba? Mula yung ano no, walang matinding ano. Walang matinding imbalance. Puro ganito. Puro ranges. Surewa, naze ka na? Anong gustong mangyari ng price dito? Pababa? Gawa dito? Pero sa daily, hindi masyado malakas na tama siguro yung kagaya kanina. Parang kagaya dito. With my share yakido. Then, pag ganyan pataas siya, pataas. Doko yaro na. Dito sa baba medyo mahirap. Tsaka kung mag-aano man ako, either dito sa dalawa or eto mismo, dito sa baba na ito. Siguro pataas siya dito itong 1 minute na to, timitay kita sa kaya nandyan yan. Tapos 10 lang man yan. Yan. Tapos yung 16 siguro. Ito, diba? Pero kumadikong ko na.
Order submitted.
Hindi ko din alam kung saan papunta to eh. So, chill lang muna tayo hanggang sa mag-open mamaya yung market. Pwede kita i-post. Pababa siguro to. Hindi mo malakas. Lagay tayo ng marker dito para alam natin kung saan tayo. Kaya may 15 minutes miso structure. Pero yung 1 minute din, ayan siya. Ayokong ganito na ano eh. Malakas yan. Pag ganyan, pataas siguro to. Anong tatamaan niya dito? Yun yung 15 minutes. 4 hour kasi to eh. Ito sa baba. Ito mo. 4 hour kasi to. Macheta. For hour kasi ang naisip na iyan. Tapos hindi masyado malakas din yung ano nung weekly. $800 points. Dito 800, tas dito hindi. 800 din pala. Double bottom. Sa 15 minutes double bottom. Sa 1 hour wala din. Balik tayo in 20 minutes.